I got to tell you guys, man, like what we just watched tonight, I just got a text from a buddy right after the game ended. And he told me, he was like, listen, I was listening to you all week tell me not to play Thursday night defenses and how they're all bad. And you were right. And listen, I appreciate the acknowledgement, but even having the Steelers at number 10 this week is an embarrassment. All Thursday night defenses, guys, moving forward. I'm not sure if I could put a Thursday night defense in my top 12 anymore. It doesn't work. Every Thursday night, it's way too soon for a defense to be able to come back, play really good in fantasy football, and Joe Flacco absolutely eviscerated the Steelers defense tonight. There was so much to cover in this one. This one was way more excited and way more fun from a fantasy football perspective than I thought. But of course, as a Steelers fan, not happy. But of course, we're here for fantasy football. And for me, fantasy football comes first in these analyses and breakdowns. So we're going to get into it. Full recap. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel to show your support. And man, I think this to start with the Steelers, the offense. I talked about Aaron Rodgers quite a bit, and before the game tonight in the live stream, I don't do quarterback and tight end rankings during the week. With the new schedule that I just started with the kickers and defenses on Wednesdays, it did kind of open up Thursday for me a little bit. So if you guys want to see quarterback and tight end rankings on Thursdays, let me know, because I was talking about it before on the live stream beforehand tonight and how Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco were both pretty well ranked for me this week. Now, I had Rodgers one spot above Flacco. I think they were both like quarterback 15, 14 range or something like that for me. Rodgers has a good night. I mean, one of the picks that he threw wasn't even his fault. Like, DK Metcalf had the ball ripped away from him towards the sidelines on one of them. So he realistically should have had 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. But nonetheless, one of the interceptions he threw was extremely ugly. So Aaron Rodgers ends up having a pretty good night in fantasy. 250 yards on the through the air, and he has 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. Listen, again, the interception was just, the one of them was bad, and it was on him. The second one was not on him. It was on DK Metcalf. DK had another ball ripped away from him. And I said this, I've been saying this over the weeks. As big as DK Metcalf is, that guy gets a lot of balls ripped away from him. And anytime there's like tight press coverage and it's a true 50-50 ball, he doesn't come down with a lot of them. He's not George Pickens in that area. I want to make that clear. George Pickens would not have gotten that ball ripped away from him if it was him tonight. So very disappointing from DK Metcalf, but it ruined Aaron Rodgers' fantasy day just a little bit. Listen, I don't know if, like, again, Thursday nights things are so warped because I said this all week. Thursday night defenses, they've got to move down. And Thursday and London in overseas games, those defenses move up because those offenses come out of those games very sluggish, very sloppy, very unprepared and flat. That's how those overseas games go because it's a different time zone, different field conditions, entirely different. Thursday night games, it's really soon for a defense to be expected to come up and make a lot of plays, man. And we've seen it all year. Thursday night defenses don't work. So it's hard for me to take much away from Rodgers as far as like if he's going to continue this. He's done it a couple times this year. Against the Jets, he played really well like this in the first week. And obviously tonight he did really well. But I think Rodgers is going to continue to be basically what he's been, which is pretty conservative when he can be. And when he has to be aggressive like this, he'll be able to get it done because the Steelers do have playmakers, and we'll get into them later. Jaylen Warren to start out with, what a good play tonight he was. That guy was ripping that defense left and right. I mean, Jaylen Warren looked fantastic tonight. It was all Warren, no Kenneth Gainwell. Really, three carries for 14 yards for Gainwell and 16 carries for 127 for Warren. So I'll tell you this, like Jaylen Warren, for me, he's the same. Like I look at them the same way as far as like, he's a solid running back too. Nobody you're going to jump up and like hoot and holler about or cheer super loudly about. But Jaylen Warren's good enough to be able to get the job done on a really consistent basis because he's getting the workload. And tonight, he showed how efficient he can be. So, like, he gets 20 total touches in this game. and does really well on every single touch. Basically, averaged like 8 yards per play. So Jaylen Warren, it's the same as I always look at him. He actually had a touchdown taken away from him, which would have been a monstrous fantasy night. It was in the first half, and he had just he shut off 3 tackles and zigzagged the field, and he got in the end zone. They called it back. I think it was on a holding. So Jaylen Warren should have had a massive night, but he didn't end up doing that. You've got to factor in the Bengals defense, factor in the Thursday night aspect. I don't think Jaylen Warren's going to be this great every week, but, he's a very fine RB2. Flex option. This is a guy who can consistently go in your lineup, give you a safe floor of about, 8 to 10 fantasy points with upside that's, north of 20 in certain weeks, because he realistically should have had 20 fantasy points in a full PPR format, like 25 actually, if that touchdown had counted. So Jaylen Warren, very impressive by him tonight. Pat Freiermuth, freaking explosion. I mean, this guy mostly came on one play. I mean, it shouldn't even say that. I mean, he got 2 touchdowns in this game. And the first touchdown was just like an excellent play by Rodgers. He rolled out of the pocket, he bought some time. That's the thing about Rodgers, I will say, is Rodgers, not a runner, not as mobile as he used to be. But man, that guy can still extend plays. He can definitely roll out of the pocket and buy himself enough time to find an open receiver down the field and deliver a strike. Because that's what he did on the first touchdown to Pat Freiermuth, and it looked really good. That second one he did to Pat Freiermuth, very similar, except that one was longer down the field. That Pat Freiermuth's second touchdown was with, I think they left 2 minutes left on the clock. So they just gave the Bengals way too much time to work with. And essentially what had happened was that Rodgers rolled out of the pocket, kind of reminiscent of that Green Bay that play with the Packers all those years ago when they were playing the Cowboys in that wild card matchup, and he threw to Jared Cook on the sidelines on the run. I mean, he threw a strike, but had to have been 30, 40 yards down the field. Just delivered a strike on the run, barely beat the guy. The defender was closing in on it, and Rodgers just zipped it right past his fingertips. I mean, it was fantastic. Pat Freiermuth was wide open. There was no one behind him at that point. So the Muth comes up, has a massive night in fantasy football. And I don't look at this one much differently than I did before the game, which is that, listen, Pat Freiermuth is a solid player. But the Steelers, man, I mean, every one of these tight ends had a touchdown tonight. Every one of them. That was the Steelers' offense tonight, was touchdowns from their tight ends. That should tell you one thing, and that one thing it should tell you is that these players, man, these tight ends in Pittsburgh, it's competitive. So Pat Freiermuth doing this, you should not look at this, and I think we're going to see this. Pat Freiermuth's going to get picked up off waiver wires this week, and what I will say to you is that Pat Freiermuth, you should not go into this one thinking that you're getting a steal and someone's going to get a late breakout with Freiermuth. He is still not as involved on a per-snap basis as Jonnu Smith, and even the Matt Washington. He's just not as involved. You have to factor that in with Pat Freiermuth. So, I think I'm a little bit worried about seeing a mad dash to the waiver wire this week. And if you do, use our tool on FS Roundup because it'll get you Pat Freiermuth. But I don't think you should. I don't think you should use Pat Freiermuth as a priority waiver claim. I just think that this was a right place at the right time and right matchup situation for Pat Freiermuth, and they utilized him more than they had all year, and I don't expect it to continue because he's splitting the tight end share 3 ways. It's not just 2 ways, and I've been discussing over the weeks how much I dislike 2 tight ends unless it's Baltimore. Pittsburgh, you got 3 because they use Darnell Washington, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. DK Metcalf, underwhelming tonight. There was a couple opportunities missed. Rodgers threw him a beautiful ball at the beginning of the game on the first drive, and he dropped that thing right in the freaking bucket. I mean, it was gorgeous throw. And outside of that, DK didn't do too much. Again, he had that one catch that turned into an interception, ripped away from him at the sidelines towards the end of the first half. I mean, DK Metcalf, my problem with him is that something just doesn't look right. And I said this in the wide receiver rankings. Something doesn't look right with his chemistry with Rodgers yet. There's something that's just a little bit off there. And number 2 is that the tight ends are so well utilized. Number 3 is that this guy doesn't come up with the same amount of contested catches that Pickens used to. Pickens used to freaking dominate on contested catches. And I know this is a Steelers fan. Like, got my Big Ben rookie year jersey on here. I think that Pickens is better at contested catches than DK Metcalf. And it doesn't make sense because DK's big body, like, he should be able to box so many guys out, but he doesn't catch with his hands. He lets a lot of body catches it, and that's a problem when you got tight coverage like he did tonight, and he took a big hit on the play that he fumbled, and it became an interception. So DK is what he is. I mean, I think, tonight broke the touchdown streak, and that's a bummer because, he's just not getting enough. He's getting work. Like, the work is there. But the chemistry with Rodgers isn't good enough to be able to live off of 8 targets. And that sounds weird, but like DK Metcalf to be able to not live, but for him to thrive off of 8 targets, he's got to get in the end zone. He's got to get in the end zone, man, and he didn't tonight, and you saw it. It's not going to kill you this fantasy day, 8 points in half PPR format. It's not bad, but it's not the best, and he's not going to help you towards winning that this week too much. Jaylen Warren, again, really good through the air as well. 4 catches for 31 yards. Did very, very well overall tonight. Same thing applies with him. I mean, this guy, as long as he's healthy, the Steelers are going to use him very similar to a workhorse back. They will do that. Jonnu Smith gets in the end zone. He had the first touchdown in the game, and it was on a really nice play by Rodgers. I mean, again, rolling out on the run, beautiful throw, like looking down the field. That's all Rodgers does. If his line is able to hold up just enough for him to be able to roll out of the pocket, that guy can still see down the field, and he can still move enough to move out of the pocket and deliver a strike. This guy still has plenty of arm. If you doubted his arm, go back and watch that last play. The Hail Mary, he chunked it like 70 yards down the field to the end zone. Like, Rodgers still has an arm, and he can still move enough. So I will say, like, pass catching options in Pittsburgh, very viable. But we won't see this every single week from Jonnu Smith and from the Steelers offense as a whole because, again, this was a defense that we knew was bad. It's a Thursday night game, which it emphasizes and enhances how bad defenses are. And I don't think it's realistic to assume that these tight ends in Pittsburgh should be bumped up in fantasy at all. I mean, Jonnu Smith, again, continues to share with Pat Freiermuth, with Darnell Washington. So it's just too many mouths to feed at tight end, and they use 3 tight end sets a lot. I'm talking a lot of the time they're using 3 tight end sets. Roman Wilson comes up with a couple big plays while Calvin Austin's still out. I don't think that's anything to really worry about in fantasy. Scotty Miller is not anything to worry about. But again, I will highlight this. What we call them, I don't live in Pittsburgh, but I've got family who lives in Pittsburgh, and a lot of my dad's from Pittsburgh. What we call Darnell Washington is the Big Mac. The Big Matt Washington actually, because in Pittsburgh, there's Mount Washington. And Darnell Washington is freaking enormous. And he utilizes his size very well. And they've been giving him more work in the passing game. Like, I said this in the stash video today. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch this video that I did today, which was about stashing players that could be league winners. And I threw Darnell Washington's name in the equation because nobody's looking at him from a fantasy perspective right now except me. I'm the only one out there who's doing that. And that's because this guy I see on a weekly basis, they're utilizing him more and more in the past consistently. They used to do it sparingly. They're doing it a lot more this year. And they utilize him in the end zone, and that's where he can dominate because he's the Mac. The Big Mac Washington is dominant in the red zone, and he will continue to be that as long as they give him opportunities. And then really quick again, I got the text from the buddy saying, like, congrats on the defensive call. Like, defenses on Thursday night are bad. You were right. But I'm ashamed just to have the Steelers in my top 10. I mean, they got negative points tonight from a defensive perspective in fantasy. I might just have to make a rule. No more defenses in my top 12 on Thursday night. This, by all theories, should have worked. But they barely applied any pressure to Joe Flacco tonight. Any. And then that leads us to the Bengals side of the ball. Flacco was tremendous in fantasy football tonight. He had a better night than Rodgers, 342 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns. I mean, this guy even, it was cracking me up. Watching this, I came over to my parents' house tonight to watch it with my dad. That's why I'm here, and background's different. I came over tonight to watch this game, and we were watching, and I think it was, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Joe Flacco, 40-plus-year-old Joe Flacco, rolls out and freaking scrambles for like 15 yards on the Steelers defense. We were dying laughing because it just emphasized how bad the defense was tonight for the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. It was so bad. So this was embarrassing. Joe Flacco was able to manage to get 3 yards as a whole, but like that one rush got him back to positive yardage on the ground. So like he doesn't contribute from a fantasy perspective, and that's nothing you can expect. But at the same time, man, I got to tell you, like Joe Flacco, I saw this one coming. I did. With the bad defense, the Steelers, that's another thing. Mike Tomlin calling this defense, go look this up. He called this team a historic defense in the offseason before the start of this year. Look how bad they've been for 3 games. 3 games now out of 7. They've been atrocious. And Thursday night makes it worse, but Joe Flacco, not that you can expect this moving forward. I still think they're going to have trouble overall for the rest of the season protecting him, but he still can. I mean, he still can do this. I'm not going to lie and say he won't. I had him well ranked this week. I think he was my quarterback 15 on the week, and Aaron Rodgers was my 14th. You can go on FSRoundup.com tonight and verify this. I haven't touched the rankings, but they're up to date. Everything's up to date on how I viewed before this game. And I wouldn't move these guys after the game, obviously. But Joe Flacco, man, what a night for him. Good for him, honestly. Good for him. He deserved it. He was slicing up a bad defense tonight. Chase Brown comes away with his best fantasy day in a while. From a fantasy perspective, obviously, it would have been better had he gotten the end zone. And he got -8 receiving yards somehow, which is borderline impossible to do. And I got to tell you, man, Chase Brown should have had, he realistically should have had a 16-point day in fantasy. He had one, it was in the first half. I don't remember what quarter it was, but one play in the first half. It was when the Bengals weren't doing well offensively. They looked like they were the Bungles. They were bungling the game away, and Chase Brown was wide open in the middle of the field. Simple check down. Nothing complicated. Like he was just in the middle of the defense, wide open. Nobody around him. And he drops the ball. Drops a check down pass from Joe Flacco. It was embarrassing. I mean, talk about an embarrassment if you want to know the truth. Because he should have had 30 yards on that play. Easily. So he should have came up with 15, 16 points in a full PPR format tonight. He should have. But he didn't catch that ball, and that affected his fantasy day a lot. Believe me. If you didn't see this game, that affected it quite a bit. Because he was dominant on the ground outside of that. I mean, Chase Brown, 108 yards. He ripped him for 11 carries. 11 carries. He was able to rip him. I will say the one concern here that we have is Samaje Perine got 7 carries. And I think a large part of that is because of that drop pass. It pissed off the Bengals coaching staff. It did. They benched him right after that. They put in Perine, and they played him for a little bit. So maybe there's a little bit of unhappiness there in Cincinnati with Chase Brown. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't have inside information. But I do know this. Samaje Perine, if he's going to stick around and the workload's going to be like this, Chase Brown's not going to do this against most defenses. This was a window. And he didn't capitalize it like I thought he would. But it was encouraging, I will say that. Ja'Marr Chase, what do you expect? The guy was targeted 20 times in this game, 16 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. Tremendous fantasy night. It's going to haunt me all year, that call I made in week 6 to rank him at 20, and knowing that there was people out there that played other guys over Ja'Marr Chase, like Cortland Sutton, for example, last week, it's going to bother me all year long. Oh, man, that's going to bother me. Ja'Marr Chase is just elite. That's what it just comes down to, is there should be no discussion about playing him when you drafted him number 1 overall, and he's just the elite talent that he is. You got to play him. And you got to live through those lower games. At this point, it feels like the lower games aren't coming back, but they will be back. Like, I'm sure he's going to have another 5-point performance, another 10-point performance. But, like, this is also what he can do. Almost 200 yards in the receiving game. 16 catches in this game. They freaking targeted the living crap out of him. And I will say, Joe Flacco did throw 47 passes tonight. That's not going to happen all the time. But they were slicing up the Steelers defense, so I can't blame him for doing that. Tee Higgins, I think that was the big story tonight. I mean, it was a great fantasy day for a lot of guys, but like Tee Higgins had a touchdown in this game, and he would have had two. Like, Tee Higgins made a smart football play. That's the reality. Is he made a smart football play in this game tonight on that last drive that bled the clock and essentially won them the game. Because Tee Higgins beat Jalen Ramsey, and he would have had a house call had he not been smart and slid like right at the 5-yard line or wherever he was. Like, he slid and he chose to be a smart football player instead of giving us an even better fantasy day that would have dominated. And I feel bad again telling people to sit T tonight. I mean, I had him well ranked, what I thought was well ranked in my rankings this week, because of Joe Flacco, but I'm encouraged now even more with Tee Higgins. Like, this is something that I think it's a developing storyline. Like, I think Tee Higgins, if Flacco can play even like 3/4 or 2/3 as good as he did tonight most weeks, there's going to be receiving upside for Tee Higgins still. Like, T's obviously a very good player. The problem is Drake Browning was getting the ball. Flacco has done it for 2 weeks now. And he came away with a great fantasy day tonight. So keep your eye on T. I mean, we're getting to the point where he could be flexed in a lot of situations at this point. And again, I feel bad telling people to sit him tonight over a lot of different options. Andre Yeshiva should have had a better night, but obviously nobody's playing him from a best ball perspective, though. He should have had a bigger night. And then Noah Fant ends up getting 4 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. I look at this as more of a product of the game script rather than like it's here to stay. Because this, I mean, again, don't play defenses on Thursday nights. If you took one thing away from tonight, do not play a defense on Thursday night. It's not going to work for you, man. It will not work for you. And you will come away feeling very disappointed about what you've gotten. Because I had them ranked as my number 10 defense, and I should have just followed my instincts all week that I've been saying, which is don't play a Thursday night defense. I didn't play the Steelers anywhere. I have the Seahawks. I have the Rams, I've got other defenses, the Panthers, but I still have the Steelers inside the top 12, and it's inexcusable because at this point, I don't know how I move forward with the Thursday night defense, but it was nice to get acknowledged tonight because I had been saying all week, don't play a Thursday night defense. So that was it, basically. I mean, that was really the big game right there. A lot of fun to watch, man. As a Steelers fan, I enjoyed it. Wish we came out with a win, but I just had a feeling as well. I said this all week. I had a feeling the Steelers were going to lose this game, and they did. So we'll answer the super chat that I got. Dizzy B, appreciate the super chat. Dude, I picked up Flacco to stack with Chase and was mocked in my league. Huge gamble, massive win. This is why I take chances in life, because if you take chances and they've got upside, that can happen. I mean, those two combined gave you what? Close to 70 points probably. I mean, they were lights out tonight. So, great call, man. Congratulations on making that call, having the balls to do it, because not most people would have done it. Most people would not have done what you did right there. So, very, very good option for you. And we'll go ahead and call it right there, guys. Love you guys. Appreciate y'all being in here tonight. That was a fun game to watch. I think everybody enjoyed it. And I will see you guys in tomorrow's videos. Peace out.